Hello, everybody. This is Jemmy from Flintstone Media with the 4th episode of the Curve the Cube podcast. Curve the Cube is a South Florida-based arts, media, and entertainment podcast aimed at inspiring you to pursue your dreams and passions outside the cubicle. And on this episode, we feature Jessica Vacco, who is a writer, a reporter. She's in the media, and she's awesome. She's a rising star. She is a freelancer for Us Weekly. Yes, that's Us Weekly magazine, not US Weekly. Us Weekly. And she's out of Chicago. So this was the first podcast that was actually recorded over the phone. So it's kind of a phone cast. It was kind of cool to do it that way. And she also has her own digital online magazine called Binge, which she's just started this year. And yeah, she's a rising star. She's interviewed all kinds of celebrities and really is making a niche for herself in Chicago, and has designs on exploring, possible career in television as a hostess or what have you. So she's really amazing. And she's interviewed people like Justin Timberlake, Rosie, Robin Thicke. So she's really cool, and she really talks a lot about what it takes to. She's a hard worker. It doesn't take just passion. This girl realized, and it takes a lot of hard work. And she's definitely has a fire under her, and it's really cool to hear her talk so passionately about everything she does. Anyway, so again, this is a little bit of an Orphan Annie podcast, no sponsor. So if you'd like to sponsor a future episode of Curve the Cube, or if you know a business that would like to, just email me at mediaflintstone@gmail.com, and you can be a sponsor and get your name mentioned here. Anyways, so thank you for listening. This is the 4th episode of Curve the Cube. I'm Jemmy with Flintstone Media, and today you're got to hear a great conversation with Jessica Vacco. Enjoy!
Curve the Cube will now initiate.
I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for calling, and this is very exciting. It's great to have you on the phone. How are you today?
Oh, yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm getting a little bit of like a sinus infection thing, but I'm doing great. Yeah, it's mostly passed, so I'm doing fine.
Yeah, no, I'm like starting to get one, so it's that time of year. It's like,
I know, it's been something going around everywhere. It's been crazy.
Yeah, I know. I always feel like right now it's actually, all week it was snowing, which I love, but it was really cold out. And now this morning we went to the gym and it was like 30-something, and it's raining, but definitely not the below zero that it had been all week. So it's a nice little break.
Yeah, I don't mind cold weather. I don't like cold and rainy. Rainy is, when it's cold, is just not my favorite thing in the world. I can't, it's gross.
Yeah, and that's how I am. I love the snow, I love the cold, but I did realize, like, the other day, I'm like, okay, what I don't like about the cold is the 40-mile-an-hour winds in my face, and then I, like, get to a meeting, and I look like I've been beat up by a snowman, like.
No, I've always wondered that about Chicago, because it's the windy city, and it's supposed to be super cold. I'm like, how does anyone deal with how cold it is up there when it's windy?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
The wind is bad. Yeah, when, like, walking to and from, like, the train, it's so, the train is so convenient, but it's like, I actually, which I never do, like, I very, very rarely do this. The other day, I had, like, a dinner meeting, and afterwards, I, like, actually caught a cab. I was like, I'm not doing this. I knew it was only going to be, I knew it was going to be like $10, otherwise I wouldn't have done it, but I was like, walk to the train or just make it home. I'm like, I'll just go home. Like, I'm not doing this. So that's where it gets hard. It's like, most places you can jump into a car and you're like, okay, I'll put the heat on. Here it's like, I really have to walk in that 3 blocks seems like a mile when, you're trying to get.
Because that's that chill to the bone. Absolutely. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, so I'm used to it. I lived in LA for a little bit over 2 years, and actually hated it. Like, I couldn't do with no seasons. Like, I would get, like, seasonal, I don't want to say depression because it wasn't, but it was like seasonal sicknesses.
Lack of seasonal depression.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all of a sudden, like, I remember the first year I was there, sitting in my apartment didn't have internet, and I didn't really have money to pay for internet, so I was sitting in, like a little cafe thing, having a cup of coffee, and they're playing Christmas music, and it was 90 out, and I'm like, what? This is like wrong. Like, this is really very strange.
Just didn't feel right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I would come back, then it was like I would get the germs from being in the cold, and then the germs from the air, like the airplane.
Right.
And I had done that. I lived there for 2 years, and then I moved straight to New York. And so then that was the same thing. It was like, even though it was cold in New York, when I would come home, I would get so sick. Like, it was crazy.
I believe
it. Like, your body really knows, like, what it adjusted to, and, it's like, when you take it out of that, it's crazy. Are you originally from Florida?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was born in North Carolina, but I've lived in Florida since I was about 3. And, yeah, I mean, I lived in New Orleans for 4 years. That's where I went to college, and I lived in Virginia for 3 years. So that's about as cold as I got, was Virginia, which is nothing compared to Chicago. But, yeah.
They all have.
Yeah, it was nice to have some seasons, though. I mean, it's funny, I don't even know what brought it up in my head this morning, but I was actually thinking about how there are seasons in Florida, but they're so subtle that you don't even notice them unless you've been here your entire life. Like, when it changed about 2 weeks ago, and I knew instantly, and when I woke up, I'm like, we just got a season change. But it's like no one else would have noticed that unless you've been here forever. So
yeah, like, I would tell you, like, what are you talking about? What do you mean a season change?
You'd be like looking at the trees and the sky, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's so funny. Well, my roommate, when I lived in New York, she was from South Florida. So it was funny. She would act like she could, like, bear the cold, and then she would go outside and be like, I'm not going back outside. I'm like, I didn't think so. Like, it's very different. Yeah, and she would be like, oh, no, I like it. And then, like, step outside and, like, come back in and be like, no way.
Yeah, no.
It's, like, so funny. It's just,
so when you moved, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sorry. I was just saying, it's so funny that...
There's a little bit of a delay on either side, I think. So
yeah,
but it's going to be all right. We're going to get through this. No, I was just wondering, like, when you moved out to LA and when you moved out to New York, was it for pursuing what you're doing for your career, and what prompted you to move out to LA and New York?
Yeah, it actually was. Right now I'm 24, so I'm just fresh out of everything. But when I moved to LA, I was 18, and it was kind of like, I knew I wanted to do it. I knew I eventually wanted to end up in New York, but I knew LA was a good starting spot for, getting into the entertainment industry. And I really, when I went out there, was focusing on sports broadcasting, and so I thought it would be, a good avenue for me. So my mom was kind of like, you know what, she's like, it was like, I was 17 when I decided it. And she was like, if you can get into school and you can find, a way to make it work, she's like, I would love to be able to send you to school out there. I can't afford it, but I will support you. And so she really helped me get through. I was a live-in nanny, and that's how I made it work. She was okay, I had found it on my own. I was like, I'm going to do this. And luckily, I come from a very supporting family who was like, yeah, do it, where most people are like, what, are you insane? And then I just went through some, I don't know if it was really personal changes or just really what I went through out in Los Angeles and just kind of entering the industry as an 18-year-old who comes from the Midwest. It was a very discouraging part of trying to break into something, and I was just kind of done with it, and I was like, you know what, I'm done with the negativity. Just, there's a lot of, I guess, for lack of better sense, like, I was working full-time, I was a nanny, and then I was going to school full-time, and I was trying to find internships and jobs, and I was watching people who just kind of were laying on the beach and somehow getting these internships that I was working so hard for, and had a lot to do with and I say this very, respectfully to everybody, but it had a lot to do with image. And I wasn't the 6 foot, 90 pound girl that, TV really looks good on. I'm 5'1" and kind of just, I just who I am. And it was something I wasn't willing to change for the chance to be on TV. And, I was very focused on my career. And I think sometimes that went unnoticed, and it was that was discouraging. And I was like, what am I working so hard for? What am I working to be a nanny? I don't want to be a nanny just to live out here, and I'm not getting, I'm not really utilizing any opportunities because I can't get them because I also have to make a living in order to be out here. So I was just at one point was like, I'm done. And I remember it was my 20th birthday, and my mom had come out to visit me, and my car broke down, and nobody knew. I mean, I've always put on a brave face, and nobody knew that I really wasn't enjoying it out there. And my car broke down, and I just had a meltdown, and I was like, I've been applying to school in New York, and I'm moving, and I just remember my mom being like, what are you talking about? We just went through this. And, and again, she was very supportive. She was like, if that's what you feel like, you really need to do, then, so be it, and let's, make it work. And I remember going out to New York and looking at apartments. My mom was out with me. And I just remember her being like, you're crazy. Why? Why are you doing this? From one extreme to the next. So needless to say, I think she's happy that I'm back in Chicago, at least for the time being. I know I mentioned moving back to New York to her a few weeks ago, and she was just looked at me like, no. No, let's not do this again. But
it seems like looking at what you've done and looking at everything I could find about you online and everything, it looks like you've started to form a niche for yourself in Chicago. Do you feel like that? But you're saying you still want to possibly move out to New York?
I do. It's very hard. I love New York. I mean, when I lived out there, I was just on top of the world. I was very into learning about what other people were doing, and I feel like that's kind of where I became more of a business person. I was really into kind of shadowing people and seeing what different businesses were about instead of just being into, I want to work in entertainment and sports. I got to understand the industry a little bit better. And when I moved back to Chicago, I wasn't sure that I was going to be settled here again for the rest of my life. But then part of me was, and that's why I did move back. I was like, I think, Chicago is such a good base for, I think, any business person, but young business people, because we're very welcoming. And that's something I realized with the magazine that I founded with my boyfriend. We've been welcomed into the arms of so many people that it's almost unbelievable, and that's where I kind of struggle because I don't know that I would ever want to give that up. And, I think I crave adventure, so that's why I'm like, I want to move again. But at the same time, when I really sit down and think about what Chicago's done, for me, not only personally with my family and, growing up here and the memories I have, but professionally and how much I've grown since I've moved back here, I don't know that, ever parting with that would be something that would ever be easy. It would really have to be...
It'd be a big decision.
Yeah, it definitely would have to be in the right moment for the right reasons, before I think being just moving. It was my thing. I was like, I want to explore, and I still want to explore, but at the same time, I think I've really built a home for myself out here, and that's not just with my apartment and stuff. It's really with the people of Chicago, and that's something I don't know that I could ever, people say it all the time, my city is the best city, and that's something I truly do think about Chicago is we do have just some of the most genuine, hardworking, and down-to-earth people that being surrounded by that has built me up so much that it would be definitely hard to try to top that.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a important place in your heart, and that's really awesome. I think, and you sounds like you're also ventured into so many different things. I've noticed that you've done entertainment reporting, you've done hosting, modeling, and now with the magazine you're doing reviews on bars and restaurants and stuff. What what is it about you and your passion for the industry that has you venturing out in so many different ways and loving, taste testing all these different things that you can get involved in?
I think with me, like I said, I do crave adventure, but at the same time, and the reason we actually started Binge was for people to be able to binge on things that are good in their lives. There's so much negativity in our world. You can turn on the news and everything, you can sit and watch an hour news segment, and 90% of what's on the news is sad and depressing and kind of makes you just want to curl up in a ball and not go outside. And my goal is to kind of dab into every aspect of our world that, is so good. And sometimes that's food and drinks and enjoying other people. And sometimes it's entertainment and a play. But what I've realized comes back is me showcasing other people's passions is what I'm passionate about. I really
cool.
just like being on this podcast, I mean, I can see how passionate you are about it. And to me, it's like, that's what I love to do. I love to collaborate with people who are passionate and willing to kind of focus on the good in life. And that's the kind of, I mean, it's taken me, like you said, I would have never in a million years. I mean, I'm a pasta-loving pizza eater, meat eater. Like, I would have never thought I would be at an oyster bar taste testing oysters and talking about it. And I just realized that, in Chicago, too, it's such a hub for talented chefs and, people who are so passionate about food and drink. And the way that it brings people together has been something that I'm like, oh, I can do this. This is so much fun. And we've like I said, we've been blessed to have met so many awesome people in Chicago who have given us the opportunity to kind of go in different directions and not just focus in one thing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have the core of your passion. A lot of it is adventure and curiosity. Does that carry into, I noticed that you've done a lot of interviews with some really cool people like Robin Thicke, Jason Derulo, Justin Timberlake. Like, when you're interviewing, people who are of celebrity status and stuff, like, I can imagine, do you get like giddy and everything? Are you just trying to pick their brain? Like, what's it like for you, for Jessica, to interview people in the industry? And is it different interviewing a big celebrity versus maybe a bar owner or something like that?
That's a great question. I think if somebody were in my shoes and my brain when I'm doing the interviews, I think what I get giddy about is the fact that I've worked really hard to get to this place. So when I'm in front of somebody that has millions and millions of fans, I'm not giddy about the fact that they're there with me. What I'm giddy about is the fact that, I've worked really hard to get here, and it's almost unbelievable to me. I am of no status. I do my job, and I work really hard. And so to be able to be surrounded with people and to understand the life of somebody who has millions of followers is what makes me giddy. I think any interview I do, and that's something I've always told people and I've always been really honest about, is any interview I do, I don't care if it would be with a bird outside or Robin Thicke. Like, I'm going to treat everybody the same way. I'm going to be just as excited about, the cafe owner down the street as I would be about Justin Timberlake. And I know to some people that does sound fake, but it's something I've worked really hard to say. If I'm going to do anything with my life, it's going to be put 150% in, no matter how big or small the task is. And I do. I mean, there's been points with the Justin Timberlake interview. I remember getting assigned that interview and being like, me? And I was very flustered, like, it just seems very strange to me that I would be the one getting to do this. Yeah. And so I did, I get those moments of, oh my God, this person, but then I come back down and say, this person is just another person, and this is my job, and I chose to do this, so I can't act too crazy, even though, sometimes it's so much fun. And I've been so blessed, and I'm so thankful for the opportunities that I've gotten, and hope that they continue to grow and grow. And I know in I don't think in a bad sense, but in a sense, you know, I meet somebody like Justin Timberlake, and I'm like, okay, who's next? You know, who, how can I outdo this one? And who's going to be the next person to really make, you know, butterflies and make me get, you know, just kind of excited. So, and I do, I get excited about everything. So
That's
it is
awesome.
different, but at the same time, you know, kind of, I try to keep it all the same.
How did you end up landing the gig with Us Weekly? And by the way, I remember when I first started seeing the magazine on shelves, and it took me forever to figure out if it was Us Weekly or US Weekly. Do people all the time say US Weekly? I bet they do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My mom will say it, and I'm like, no, that's not. And actually, when I first started dating Sal, he would say the same thing. I'm like, no, it's Us Weekly, you know, and it's funny because, you know, to be honest, I don't know that I knew before I started working. I knew the magazine. I've been, I mean, if you went back into a vault of my life, I mean, I've had those magazines since I can remember. I've had every magazine. I've been a magazine obsessor all my life, but, you know, you don't think about that stuff. And people do all the time, and I'm kind of like, unless it's my family or, you know, one of my friends, I won't correct them. I'm like, yep, it's all the same thing. Like, but,
yeah. How did you get involved?
It was actually very weird when I first moved back to Chicago. You know, it's craving like, okay, now I'm back and I know this is the right thing to do, but like, where do I go from here? You know, and I remember just kind of applying to everything and anything, and somewhere along the line, I, you know, got an email saying like, hey, we have this event, and I believe it was just somebody, like, I don't honestly even remember how exactly it went, but I got an email from the editor who's still my editor today, and she's the one who assigns me everything and has been a great role model for me, saying, you know, we have this interview with Rosie O'Donnell. Are you available to go? And I was like, what? And, like, I remember Googling her name to make sure, because I was, you know, I applied for things off Craigslist, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of thinking,
you're skeptical.
like,
especially when they come back with a name like Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, and Us Weekly, and I'm like thinking to myself, like, no, there's no way. And I remember Googling her name, and just to be like, is this, you know, true? And I was actually nannying my nephew at the time, and I didn't have a car, and I remember asking my brother-in-law, like, I remember texting my brother-in-law and my sister being like, is there any way that one of you could get home a little bit early today and let me use their car? You know, and when they asked why, of course, they were like, oh, yeah. And my brother-in-law and my sister, they're both like, yeah, we're on our way. You know, like, very supportive and very, you know, like, yeah, absolutely. And ever since then, it was just, you know, they've assigned me stuff, and something I won't complain about because,
awesome.
I love doing it, and it sometimes is so far and few between in Chicago. Like, there'll be months of nothing and then months of 5 or 6 interviews, and it's such a fun, you know, not only job, but really a passion of mine to do. So I've been very lucky with that.
How much have you had to pound the pavement to really, I mean, because I imagine that, you know, being a writer for a magazine and doing all the things that you've done, it's a very competitive situation. So how much hard work do you have to do just to, you know, keep going and charge ahead and grasp at all these opportunities?
I think that's an excellent question, too. I would like to think that I work harder than most people that I know, and that's just because I know what I put into it, and I know that there's people who work a million times harder than me, but I just want to always make sure that I'm working as hard as I possibly can, and like I said before, it doesn't matter how small or how big the job is. I put everything I possibly can into any sort of project, whether it's Binge or it's an Us Weekly interview. And I still get, oh my gosh, I still get nervous every time I do an interview with Us Weekly and send it over. I'm like, well, okay, what if this is so bad that they don't ever want me to do anything again? You know, and it's a constant, and I think that's good. I mean, at first I was like, why am I thinking like this? And I'm like, you know what, I think that's good because I should always be questioning myself. Am I getting better? Am I improving? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Because I have a lot of voice with Binge. You know, that's kind of my baby. And so I can kind of make the shots. You know, I can tell if something's good or something's bad that I'm doing. And so when it's out of my control, I do just make sure that I am working extra hard. And then the next interview I go in, I make sure I'm, you know, improving every time. And I do sit there and listen to, I still have my first interview, the one with Rosie O'Donnell, I still have it on my recorder. And I listen to stuff, weekly and just make sure that the interview I did then does not sound anything like the interview I just did last weekend. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm always working to improve who I am as a person, both individually and professionally. And I just think that's something you just have to keep pushing ahead. I don't believe in sitting still, and I don't believe in letting opportunities pass me by. And so sometimes I'm working 6 different jobs a day, but I'm doing it not because I really, always want to be working 18-hour days, but because I know I have to, and I know somebody somewhere else could be working harder than me, and then that person deserves to get these opportunities. And so I never want to be working less than anybody else.
Have you ever, has there ever been an opportunity that you've missed and have had, or any kind of situation that you've had to learn from, as whether it's a missed opportunity or maybe some pitfall that you fell into as you've started to kind of grow and find your way? Has there been a big learning lesson for you?
Oh yeah, I mean I fall down every other day. That's no question. I mean I think that's something any young business person, old business person, middle business person, anybody goes through. You kick yourself at something you might not have thought was a good fit, and then you realize, maybe it was. But I try not to focus on that. I do know I could probably sit down and write a book of things, I've either done wrong or done a different way. And, maybe had I done it, the straightforward way, I would have gotten this job. But instead I do it the Jessica way. And, maybe I am missing out because, and it goes back to when I was moving around, LA to New York. Instead of doing a 4-year college, I decided that life experience was more important to me. And so there's times I do think about, like, okay, well, if I would have just went to a 4-year university and gotten my degree and done it this way, like, how would my life be different? But then I check myself back out of that right away, and I make sure that I'm not focusing on what could have been, because no, you can't, and it gets you nowhere. Then you waste your days wondering what if instead of doing, what is now and what can I do to make my situation better. And no matter how happy I am, I know I could always be pushing more and, instead of really focusing on the negative. So, I mean, yeah, of course, there's been a lot of downfalls, but at the same time, there's been a million better things that have happened. And I think that just focusing on that is what gets everybody through their days.
That's awesome. You're a very positive person. I like that.
Thank you. That's definitely, that's something that's not always easy either, but that's, I learned that at a young age that life is way too short to, be negative and focus on what could be wrong. So I just try to, really bring positivity to not only my life, but other people's. So that's, where Binge came in too. Like I said, we want people to binge on the good stuff in life and realize that life is too short to focus on, I don't want to go outside today because what happens if, somebody attacks me? I don't want to go to this job interview because I don't know that I'll make it. So many people are better. We want people to really believe in themselves and go after life and enjoy it.
Yeah, did you and Salvador conceive Binge together, or how did that? And tell the listeners like what more about what Binge is about and what they can find if they go to the site, and because it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It's so much fun, and Sal actually, when I had met him, he had a bilingual magazine that he had founded when he was in college. He comes from a very cultural background. His family is very focused on their culture and preserving that and making sure that they don't forget, where they came from. And so he was doing that to kind of give a voice to his community who wasn't really, maybe didn't have the resources. And as he started to get busier, he's a creative director downtown at an advertising agency. And as he started to really grow in his professional career, he was just seeing, that he couldn't really handle, not that he couldn't handle it, but it was just not what he was supposed to be focusing on. Yeah. So when when we had met, it's kind of funny because he has the creative background and marketing background and digital background, and then I had the writing background. And last year, because Binge was just found in February of 2014, so we kind of sat down and was like, what can we create together that maybe will be something that we end up doing full time someday, and that's where Binge came to be. And we are a lifestyle digital magazine, and we are nationwide, but obviously Chicago is a big hub for us because that's where we're at. But, like I said, we focus on the good stuff. We do plenty of interviews with, fitness enthusiasts, business people, arts and entertainment, sports and fashion. The list goes on and on. We don't want to ever say we just focus on, people a lot of times think Binge is just food and drink, but it's actually, a full lifestyle magazine. So as of now, we're just digital, but, we've really grown in the past few months, and it's been tremendous to see. I personally love seeing, Sal's passion for it because it helps me remember mine. And, the days can get long and, things can get piling up and, you look and you think, how am I going to do this? And being partners with him, he's also my boyfriend and my best friend, but he inspires me so much to just keep pushing because he works a full-time job and then comes home and does this. And so when I complain about, doing, so much, I'm like, okay, I know what he's doing to make this, and so I need to do my part. And we push a lot off of each other and, help each other not only with Binge, but with everything else we're trying to achieve. And I think just like the positivity thing, I think surrounding yourself with positive people who work hard is what's going to help you get, to the next point in life. And so that's what we hope to be for other people as well.
What has it taken to get Binge off the ground?
A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of bad ideas, a lot of good ideas, and just, just
what was a bad idea, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I don't know that, there was one. I think I sometimes look at, why did I post that article? What did I think? I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not a business, I'm a business person, but not in the sense of, why am I giving people business tips when I don't know what it's like, instead of really giving people good content. So I just think, you go through things and you think something's good and you realize if it works or if it doesn't work. And just, we did a lot of that. We did a lot of, this was good content. No, it's actually not. Nobody cares about it kind of thing.
Right.
And really finding our voice because we are very similar people and we're very different people at the same time. And so I think, having a lot of ideas, sometimes your voice is all over the place. And I think finding that common ground and finding our voice as Binge was, I don't want to say it was a struggle, but it was definitely a process. We definitely had to bounce off different ideas and say, there's stuff I think was good that he didn't think was good. There's stuff he thinks good. It's going to go full circle like that, round and round and round until you really stop and think about, as a business aspect and, what our leaders want. And so that is just a lot of back and forth, but we did it pretty fast. And I think the thing with us is we don't look back. We knew we wanted to do it. And because we did it, we won't give up on it. That's something we both agreed on. We want to make this, a household name, and we'll work until we get to that point.
Good. That's awesome. Well, that's kind of how I feel about what I'm doing, too. It definitely takes a lot of work, and if you're passionate about it, once you get it started, it's like your baby. You just want to see it keep growing and reach its full potential,
Oh, yeah. Well, exactly.
I totally hear you.
Exactly what you're doing, and that's why, I was so quick to be like, yeah, absolutely, let's get this started up because I totally know, and I know just like this, it's a Saturday afternoon. There's a million other things you could be doing, but instead you're doing it because you love it, and because, like you said, it's your baby and you want to see it grow. And people say that all the time, what do you mean you guys work on the weekends? Wouldn't you just want to break? I'm like, but it's not really work when you're having so much fun and you're building your legacy and your name is on it. And I think, and I think that's the difference that people don't get sometimes when your name's not on something, and it's a company that you're just working for, and the company goes, okay, it's the company, you can blame that. When it's your name, and you have to walk around with, oh, Jessica did this,
right.
And that hits a little bit closer to home. You've got
of course,
it's
when
just
someone Googles you and it comes up, it reflects you.
Oh yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's your baby, and what I put into Binge is what I would put into anything else, if not more. And I think having negative things come out of it, that really, you focus on that too. You focus on not wanting to do that. Whereas with a company, or when you're one of a million employees, sometimes you're like, okay, well, I can, I can go into work and be really tired and be hungover and not really care about it because my name's not on it. When your name's on it, you're like, you can do whatever you want, but like you said, you don't want it to reflect you. So
exactly. There are times when my friends and I might go out for a happy hour or something after work on a Friday, and there were before I really got going with this, there were weeks when I would go and I would have 3, 4, 5 drinks and really have a good time, and now it's like I'll have 1 or 2 because when I go home I really need to. There's stuff I need to do.
Yeah.
And so it's a different focus and a different mindset. So one thing I was really curious about, because I think your main talent, I would say, is writing, or your main focus sounds like it's writing. How hard was it to find your voice as a writer, and how important was that? You hear that a lot. You have to find your voice. What was that process? How's that been?
It's funny because I sometimes struggle with that. I don't know that I've even found my voice with it yet. Like I don't think I ever really knew that I was a writer. I've always liked to write, and more so I've always liked to, and you can ask my family this one, I've always liked to talk. Like, really talking. If I have a passion, it's talking, and it's getting a story out that way. And so my dream has always been to have a talk show. Kelly Ripa was my idol growing up, and still is. And
I saw that she was like your big idol. I was gonna ask you about that. Would you ever want to be in television?
Oh yeah, I mean that's where really everything I think career-wise stems from. My dad was real sick when he got sick when I was in 7th grade, and I remember there being days where I would be like, I just want to stay home. I just want to be here, and we would watch Live with Kelly and Regis, and I remember just being like, this is what I want to do. And I also grew up a very big tomboy, and
me too.
So I sometimes think it gives people more character.
I think so.
And so I knew I wanted to work in sports, and I knew I wanted to work in TV, and unfortunately it's just not that simple. You think, and I think not that I ever thought it would be simple, but I thought because I had so much passion that when I moved to LA, things would just fall into place. And obviously that doesn't, that's a fantasy world, and I had to come out of that real quick and realize that it takes so much hard work. And luckily my parents both, and, my brother and my sister, both my brothers and my sister, and everybody in my family is hard workers, and that's something we grew up, that things didn't just fall onto your plate. But I think as an 18-year-old girl, you think it's, well, maybe you're different, or maybe this. And so with the writing thing, I kind of got into that more because of the reporting and the interviewing. And so sometimes I do struggle with, I know I'm not the world's best writer, and I know I'm not the world's worst writer. So what I do is I just try to learn, I try to learn from myself. And I mean, that's why I say that I can support my habit of buying magazines, is because it's work. I've done that since high school, though. I always used to say in high school, I need this $5 magazine because that's how I study. That's what I want to do. And so I think finding your voice is just being true to who you are. I think sometimes the best writing comes from just, and I'm sure people can correct me on this because they might not feel the same, and there's so many different types of writing, but my best writing comes from being myself, and I think that goes back to me wanting to be a talk show host too. It's
can I ask you, have you ever read the book Little Women?
No, I have not.
You might want to if you have a chance, you might want to read it. The reason I'm bringing it up because the main character, Jo, she is very passionate about writing, but she goes into writing about like mysteries and horror type of, crazy stuff. And because she's of the thought that you have to write about what you don't know in order to write well. And then by the end of the book, she learns that in order to write well, you actually have to write what you know. And that's always carried with me. And I think in what I'm doing, like I've done a couple other ventures in the past, but the reason this feels like home to me so much is because it feels the most authentic to who I am. And so I'm hearing you speak, and it's like, yeah, it's about being your authentic self is what's really going to, bring out your whether it's writing or making film or whatever it is, making music. It's whatever's true to yourself is what, comes across as the most powerful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely going to check that out because I do believe that, too. I mean, I think we all go through phases where we don't even know ourselves. We are trying so hard to fit in and trying so hard. And it's not just in high school. I realize it now. Sometimes more as adults you try to fit in because you're in a certain career, you're in a certain environment, and you feel like you have to kind of morph yourself into somebody that you're really not just to fit in. And I think that especially with Binge, I think I've always been a confident person. I've been very lucky I feel like I've always really known myself, but I also went through so much stuff learning about myself that I think when we started Binge, to me, like you're saying, that was me. It's so authentic and it's so true and so raw and so real to who I am that it does just seem like it flows so much easier than anything else, I've tried to do in the past. And so that's why, too, it's like finding your voice it's hard, but you need to do it. You need to find, not only in writing, but just in life, who you are and what your mission is and, what your goals are as a human and as a professional. And I think when you combine them, which I can see that you're doing, you create something beautiful. It sounds so corny. It sounds so movie-like, but it's like it's very true. When you
but it's true,
yeah. And I think like we were talking about before, doing this on a Saturday, you have to really love what you're doing because your work becomes you. Your work becomes who you are and how you feel about life. And that's why I always said, to me, money doesn't mean anything. And sometimes I regret saying that because I have bills to pay. But I do think that your happiness it shouldn't depend on other people's happiness, which is why I think entrepreneurs grow, and then there's good business owners, and that's something I hope to be someday. I hope eventually I'll have reporters being as excited about interviews for Binge as I am about Us Weekly, and that's something I always remember too is, it doesn't matter really where you come from or, money, no money, suburb, city, whatever it is, you are who you are, and I think it's so important to find that.
Absolutely. And another guest I've had on the podcast who is also a really strong woman who's breaking out into her own is Andrea Ocampo, who I know that you are familiar with. And I think she mentioned you guys are working on, are going to be working on a project together, a blogging project called Sticks and Stones.
Yes, she is an incredible woman. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, I just wanted to know, without any, risking any spoilers, what is your contribution going to be for that project? It sounded like a really awesome project.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Andrea is such an incredible young woman. She is the epitome of class and passion and working hard. And I laugh sometimes. I see things on her Facebook, and people are like, "Do you sleep?" And I kind of wonder that too. Like, does she sleep? Because she's always going, and she makes it look so flawless. And I respect her in so many ways. I respect her, and we had connected. Twitter is an amazing thing. We connected. Same way I connected with you on Twitter. Maybe it was recently when I moved back to Chicago. And so long story short, we've kept in touch and, just followed each other's projects. And her project with Sticks and Stones really hit close to home for me, like I was saying with the not fitting in when I was in LA, and it had nothing to do with other people. It was really a confidence thing with me and just seeing the negativity and how it can really sadly affect your life. And my focus is going to be, really just like you were saying on the positivity aspect. And what I'll create for her blog with that is just something I'm very true to myself. And she definitely put together a great team of people. And, I'm not calling myself great, but the people, the women she put together for this project, you can tell are passionate about making sure people are comfortable in their own skin and kind of outdoing that negativity, and bringing positivity to negativity because, we were saying life is too short, and I'm excited. I definitely have a lot to say, so I'm excited to put something together for her, and hopefully it will do, her justice because, like I said, between her and the women she put together for that, there's some big shoes to fill, and it's not a competition, but I just hope that, my voice will do justice to what, the message
I'm sure you'll do great.
Yeah, I'm excited, so definitely stay tuned for that. I think
absolutely
it'll be a great venture for everybody.
Out of all the projects you've done so far in your budding career, which was the most exciting for you? From anything from the first time you got the call from Us Weekly to any other interview to Binge, what's been the most exciting for you?
I definitely want to say Binge because it was really a do or die project. It had our names on it, and it has our names on it, and it's sometimes such a whirlwind that it's ours. It belongs to us, and that's kind of like jumping off a cliff. You can sink or you can continue to, push up and just make sure that you are soaring with it instead of, just falling. And so to me, Binge has been an array of emotions. There's days where I'm overwhelmed, and then that can go whether it's just the work or I'm overwhelmed with the support we get with it. There's days where I'm so happy, that this is even ours. And then there's days where it's hard. It's because I think to myself, am I doing this justice? Am I doing Sal justice? Because he's got, he's so talented and so incredibly passionate and so incredibly talented with not only Binge with his work, and he's so dedicated that there's days where I struggle to say, am I doing him justice? Am I doing Binge justice? And so to keep afloat with Binge has been one of the most exciting things that's ever happened in my life. But at the same time, the first Us Weekly interview I did was in a rush of emotions that I don't think I can even put into words because I know, and it sounds so goofy to people, but I was 21 when I did it, and people laugh, but I worked so hard to get there, and that's something, people say to me all the time, you're so lucky, and I try to stay away from saying that to people because it almost feels like I fell into it then, and I know that's not the case, and I'm like, no, I'm lucky in a sense, but
it takes away some of the validity of all the hard work you've done to say that it's been luck,
And people say, how did you get that? And it's like, I worked hard, and so everything I think I've done, I don't think I've ever done anything that hasn't challenged me and hasn't excited me. So it's hard. Definitely Binge, but every Us Weekly interview I do, just like I said, every one I do, I think, is this good enough? Am I growing? Am I improving? Are they seeing it? So then when I get the next one, that's like another rush. Like, yes, they still like me. They still, and getting, not, to toot my own horn, but just recently, so it's been 3.5 years that I've been doing interviews for Us Weekly, and just recently I had done an interview, and the PR person said, so-and-so was, and she wrote it to my editor, so-and-so was so happy to speak with Jessica. She did a great job. To me, it validated my feelings, and this is why I do what I do, and
that's awesome.
So that's always an exciting thing, too, is to hear positive feedback, especially with Binge, because it is like, Sal and I can pat each other on the back all day. But when you hear an outside thing, it definitely makes, every time somebody says, even if it's just somebody that we just met that says, oh, that's a really cool site, there's something in me and that's how I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, is because something in me gets so excited. I'm like, oh, so-and-so liked it. Even if they're just saying it, it doesn't matter. I get excited. And so that's why I know, I'm in the right place right now.
That's awesome. What do you see yourself doing? Like, what are your big goals? I know you mentioned that Kelly Ripa is your idol, and you see yourself hope you have designs on being on television. What does that look like to you? If you could paint it like perfect picture, what would that big goal be?
That's a great question. Well, Michael Strahan kind of stole that one from me because I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. But definitely having a show. I really think I could take, my ultimate goal is to take Binge. I don't want to jump on anybody else's bandwagon at this point. I want to take Binge and make it into, maybe like an Entertainment Tonight or an E! News or even a morning talk show, and do something like that. And, really be a face like Kelly Ripa. I think she, especially to young women who are, budding journalists, and she's fun, but she works really hard. She didn't get where she is right now by sitting on her butt, and then there's women like Robin Roberts, who's such an inspiration to me too.
Oh, she's amazing.
Through. Oh, yeah, she is just the epitome of incredible. And I know people, could laugh at that. Those are people I look up to, but I feel like entertainment
not at all.
journalists, I feel like they do give a voice to people too, and in a positive way. Again, it's not. I don't want to be the paparazzi. I don't want to be, camping out of people's houses, and it comes with the territory. But I want to have my own show where I can, focus on, have celebrities on, have athletes on, have business people on, and not really just categorize it like the same way we are with Binge. It's lifestyle. I want to have a lifestyle talk show where I can kind of showcase people of all backgrounds and all different, walks of life, and that would be my ideal show. I think that would be my, hopefully, let's say 10 years from now, that's where I'll be.
Well, I will be hoping for you right along with you, but honestly, from the sound of it sounds like you're a workhorse, and it's going to happen for you one way or the other. You're an impressive young lady.
Thank you so much, and I feel the same way about you. Again, I was so excited when you reached out, because I was thinking to myself, like, even while we're talking, I'm thinking to myself, like, I would really like to ask her a question. So I think the next step for me, because that's just the journalist in me, the reporter in me, rather, I would love to do an interview with you and have it go up on Binge and, really support each other. And I was talking to myself, I'm like, I've never gotten to get interviewed before, and so when I was doing this, I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, this is fun, but I also want to turn the table and ask her questions. So I was like,
it's good to look in the mirror for a minute, but then you want to turn it back around.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, it's fun to talk about me, but then I'm like, I want to talk about her.
I would love to do that. That would be fun.
Yeah, so let's definitely, that would be awesome.
Let's definitely work that out.
Too.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. I'd love to do it.
Well, we are right now, like, okay. No, I was just saying, like, a million questions are going through my head that I could ask you, and I'm like, no, save it.
Well, what's your number one? If you want to, what's your number one that you're not completely tied to having on your interview? What would you want to ask me that you can ask me on the podcast?
I think kind of what you asked me, like, why, and we did go through it a little bit, but why is this something you're so passionate about? What about this? What part of your life made you say, I want to do this podcast and kind of give people a voice? Like, what really helped you create this?
Oh, awesome. Okay, because I think, I knew myself very well when I was growing up, but there are a lot of aspects of myself that I wasn't, let's just say, really encouraged to explore and pursue, because they weren't packaged as being like a guarantee of making a financial success. And so, just as an example, I've always loved psychology, and when I expressed a desire to have that as my major in college, the response was, well, you need to be a doctor so you can be a psychiatrist because psychologists don't make any money. And so, that kind of was just the pattern. And, here I am now in my 30s, and I'm looking back in my life, and I'm like, there's a lot of my passions that I never thought I could pursue as a career. And I just think that that's the wrong impression I feel like we need to give on the next generation. So here I am really wanting to harness a means of delivering a message to people that you, regardless of what age you are, you need to pursue your passion in life because that's what's going to make you happy, and that's what's the most important thing. And don't sit in a cubicle the rest of your life and be miserable if that's not what you want to do. So break out of it. Pursue your passion. So that's why, that's why I did this.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. I mean, and like you said, it doesn't matter your age. You like the realization of I don't need to spend the rest of my life in a cubicle. I can go do something else. That's so important, and that's why I feel like we're so similar because, I hope to be that too, not only to young voices, but I always say, I'm like, I don't care your age. If you want to write, write. And
right.
It's been such a, just like you were saying, trying to major in that in college and people being negative, and people have negative things to say about every career. I mean, it's it's almost to the point where it's like, why do you have to say something negative, to get a rise out of people? Why can't you just support what people want to do? And I'm so glad that you're doing this and, helping people realize that they don't have to sit in a cubicle. Life is so much more than sitting at a desk job that you hate,
Right.
You can do,
and it's funny because I think you and I both saw the same thing. Was it this morning? Yeah, this morning, and that kid, Houston Gunn on Twitter. We both were like, "Ooh, he'd be perfect. Ooh, he'd be perfect," because we both saw this kid. It was in high school and just already doing some amazing things with his life. And so that's the type of person who I think is a good example for and someone I want to shine a light on. And you and Andrea and. These are people who are really following their passion, and it's really inspiring to share the stories with the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I hope it's a chain that you can create and I can create, and instead of all the negativity and the shaming that goes on, especially with social media. If people can find that that there is people out there who will help them support their dreams. I think that's sometimes the most important thing. Sometimes people don't have families or, good friends who will support them. Or sometimes people feel, almost embarrassed, like I want to do something, but I just don't know how, But
they might have the courage to share that voice on Twitter or Facebook when they wouldn't have had the courage to share that voice out loud with the people around them, because it's very personal. It's very personal.
It is, and it's very hard, especially.
Absolutely. But this has been an awesome podcast, an awesome conversation, and you're incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really, is there anything? Is there anything as we kind of draw this to a close that you would like to promote or plug? I mean, I know we've definitely mentioned some big things, but would you like to take one last opportunity to promote or plug anything?
Just Binge, if everybody could go to bingemagazine.com and follow us on social media, you definitely won't be disappointed. We have some great stuff, and with the new year coming up, we have some amazing people we're showcasing, giveaways we're doing, and if you're looking for your number one resource for good content and positive content online, it's definitely Binge, and I can say that with the utmost honesty.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. This has been really great, and I can't thank you enough, and I really wish nothing but the best for you guys, and I know you and our conversation isn't over. I feel like this is a good connection that's going to last for a long time, so it's been awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and I will be in touch to do an interview with you.
I look forward to it. Yay!
Awesome. Thank you so much.
can you do one last thing and close out the podcast? And all it is if you could just say, this has been Jessica Vacco with Curve the Cube.
Sure. This has been Jessica Vacco with Curve the Cube.
Yay!
So exciting.
All right,
Thank
girlie.
you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Absolutely.
Bye.
You have a great Saturday.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
You have successfully curved the cube.